You're not meant to become anyone in this world, nor should you believe that you are going to be somebody in this world. Not saying that it's a bad thing to want to be somebody or be like somebody, but if you're not being yourself, then you won't realize that who you are cannot be anybody, because you were supposed to remember that you're never going to be what you think you're meant to be. So, in your being of what you think you are, what do you think you are? But you shouldn't think that you're anything, because none of these labels belong to you, none of these identities belong to you, till you became conditioned into what you want to follow. And a lot of times, what you follow is what you practice doing every single day, and that's not your program that belongs to you, but it's something that you watch. And if you're watching the same program visually every single day, then what are you representing for your spirit? You're not going to be able to reach it. You're not going to be able to meet next to it, because you're not subtracting the illusion. And what I'm saying next, because so for what I put down as well, when you subtract the illusion, the growth that we go through will never add more traits. Always remember that when you get away from the illusion of becoming somebody or being anyone, you stop wanting to add on to these illusions that people expect you to be, or you stop adding on to the illusions that your mind thinks you can be or you should be. That's why you're removing the beliefs, the roles, and the masks that never belong to your observation. When you're removing that, that's what subtracting the illusion means. And thing is too, for another example I have 10 overall, as far as like 10 key points for the homework today. So I also put down, you got to stop chasing approval and realize you are still worthy. That would basically be peeling off the conditioning and not wanting to gain worth from somebody else who doesn't see themselves as worthy. Because when you get away from people who can't approve of themselves, you get to see how worthy you are. And then once you see through the conditioning of what your mind used to tell you, you now get to see, like, you know what, this is what it means to be worthy of myself. So I'm not gaining it from somebody else's approval. No, I'm bringing it towards myself. The next one, you have to honor your inner compass, honor the inner flow. And that means the decisions you make, the thoughts you have, they flow from alignment with your higher self. And it shouldn't be the need to gain approval or wanting to fit in. So that's the other thing as well. So stop feeling as if you need to gain approval to fit in somewhere that doesn't belong to your vibration. Because if you do that, your decisions will not flow correctly. So for example, if you're leaving a job that you hate and you feel peace for the first time, that's how you know that you're in alignment and you didn't go through failure, because you're honoring the inner flow that you can vibrate with. Because this job that you used to work in, that you've seen yourself being in every single day, you were suffering, you felt miserable, you despised being there, and you always had these negative thoughts that told you you don't belong here. So in order for you to go into alignment, in order for you to feel safe, to do something that you enjoy doing, what did you have to do? You had to leave the old you that was complacent in that environment that made you feel safe, because you were able to take care of your bills and had this house that you wanted to be in and be away from your family. So always remember too, you don't have to leave and feel bad because you want to fit in for somebody's approval. No, you're being within alignment because you can feel peace for that first time. Getting away from that job and finding one that's better for you. Think about what your peace is telling you. Think about how you're able to communicate with your silence. What truths can you start hearing now? Think about the environment that you're in, and it's more healthier. And because it's more healthier, what is it doing for you constantly as you're pushing yourself through it? The third one, always return and always discover your essence. So when you're shedding the conditioning that's reconnecting with you with your source self, this is basically your existence before external influence. So you have to let go of fake confidence. So that's the other key point that I have as well. Let go of fake confidence and face your fears with honesty. Because when you understand that you can heal yourself, you're not being weak for wanting to confront what your weaknesses aren't confident in. Because you can face yourself honestly by healing who you always been, because the conditioning told your authentic version of yourself what it thought it couldn't be. And so your observation kept watching it, kept weakening itself into it, because you chose to do that. Your higher self's observation wouldn't want to feel less of itself, but when you keep telling it that, when you keep putting the program into the mind and you process that and you act on the pattern every single day, by putting an emotion towards it, putting a feeling towards it, what are you basically doing? You're not returning to your essence. You're causing the essence to do away with you to where you don't have this connection anymore. You don't have a bond. You don't have this relationship that you can form with your higher self. And your higher self will just keep watching you without telling you what you are trapping yourself into, because you're placing this illusion that's supposed to mask what you think you're confident in, but that's not you facing yourself correctly. You become healed when you bring more confidence in what you know you were working in as far as your craft. How hard you work on your craft behind closed doors determines what this action will look like. The next part, you have to always be willing to release energetic weight. Doesn't matter how strong it feels, doesn't matter how weak it feels, doesn't matter how comfortable it feels, doesn't matter how lustful it's looking. You have to know when to let go of that. And this requires you to let go of toxic people, family, co-workers, friends, habits, and thoughts that can lighten your field and it can expand your consciousness. Because when you're doing that, letting go of all those examples that I was telling you, that can lighten the field that your consciousness wants to expand. And remember, your consciousness wants to work for you. So in order for that to happen, what should you be doing for yourself? You have to, I want to make sure my video is still loading. Okay, we got 68% left. So I'm just making sure that the video for YouTube is going to get posted. So that's just a little reaction video and all that. But let's focus on this one for right now. When you're lighting up the auric field that your consciousness will expand in, your consciousness now can see itself light up its brightest days of ignorance. Because remember, in order for the days to become more ignorant into seeing itself, what is it doing? It's watching itself flow into the weekend, because that's when it wants to rest. Because days of the week are preparing you for the weekends where you can't act on your weakening state that can help upgrade your days to become weekends every day. You get what I'm saying? Your nature should be training itself to prepare itself for having weekend days, not days of the weekend. I'm gonna say it again. Your nature should be preparing itself, preparing you to have your weekend as your days and not your days of the weekend. Because you wanna have your days every single day, Monday through Friday should be your Saturday. And then when Sunday happens, Sunday is just your play day. But every day you're working, but that's your weekend, because you can rest whenever you want, because you choose to be your own boss. So what I mean is too, so for that fourth one, you're outgrowing toxic friends, you're outgrowing friends, relationships, partnerships. You're getting rid of all these things that cannot help you. They can no longer serve you anymore. They can no longer be around you. You can't be around them anymore. And you let go of them without feeling guilty. And it's not because you think that you're this or you're that, or you're putting yourself above them, or you think as if you're highly on this spectrum and they're not. No. It's because you're becoming more authentic with yourself. So where I can't prioritize or value partying over my family when I want to put my family first in the house so that they don't have to pay for anymore. That's why me going to the rec constantly, me going to go meet with people, be in somebody's face, me wanting to go lay up, me wanting to go waste my energy, doing those programs that I would never agree with. But as far as laying up with somebody and, you know, being in my desires, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna keep doing that if I choose to though. But of course I have to get to know that woman and we build from there. But that's me becoming authentic, because I'm doing things that can help me be a better man, or things that I want to have fun in, because I know where I'm going, so I can choose to have fun. If I know that this woman that I choose to be around and she wants to give her body to me in submission, and I know her database and I know where her future is, I know about her transcendence, her ignorance, then by all means I may end up using or mixing my lust into alchemy, because I don't see sex as the practice that people should be practicing. I see sex differently. I can make a video on that too, as far as sex magic and how it's supposed to be graduated into alchemy. So I'm not committing the nature of the physical action into doing it for pleasure, for my benefit. No, it's a mutual understanding of what we both can enjoy. And then my part of my practice for the intercourse, I want to make sure that she can get her highest good into feeling better within her orgasmic state that her nature can reach, that can help rewire her database into finding her blueprint that can help signal her cells into bringing her higher self to tether into that connection down here for her to feel better within herself. So if y'all want that video as well, comment down below. What's my Patreon, Unified, Studious Teachers. We're going to have intergalactic slave trading. I have the notes for that as well. I'm going to put that into a PowerPoint where I can annotate it, highlight it, but let's keep on going. So, but yeah, once I realized that I can get rid of the toxic people that I don't need in my life, I felt better because I released their expectations off of my back. And now I can place my life onto my back and I can carry my own load because I'm not playing a role for somebody else's approval that I don't care for. No. Even if I care for you, I'm not meant to change your life for you. I'm changing my life to where you can see the example of how to do it for yourself. And then lastly, being open to embodying freedom. As you are peeling away layers like an onion or a simulation, remember authenticity will basically merge naturally upon your vessel to where your clarity and inner peace remain effortless and you're creating it without having to strain yourself because you're knowing how to observe what the layers are doing. You're walking through the veil. You're not trying to force your way into it. No, you marinate it. You what's the word, you massage it, you get it comfortable, and then it becomes vulnerable. When the layer becomes vulnerable, you walk through the walls now in transparency because your atoms are scattering at a heightened energy that they can intuitively communicate with you to get you in tune into being free within your cellular modification for your vessel. And then for the last key point, you don't force a spiritual image because you're just living in your truth. And when you live in truth, you get away from identities, you drop them, and then now you can add or subtract enlightenment. But remember though, you don't have to add your enlightenment. It's becoming what it is because you drop the identity of what enlightenment will never call itself. That's exactly why when you stop forcing a spiritual image, you tell yourself, I know that I have some wisdom in my cranium. So because I have that, I had to embody what I need to release. If this energy is not doing better for me, but it's doing better for itself, and it's not about, because somebody can say, oh, so you want things to happen for you. It's not about that. It's about that balance. I'm doing so many things for you, and I'm sacrificing myself for you, but you're not holding up your end of the bargain to help me in any case. And I don't need your help, but damn, you're not even being considerate of how I want to feel. If I was to ask for your help, would you even consider it? Would you even be open to helping me, even though you can count how many times I've helped you if you're counting? But some people tend to forget when you ask them for help. That's when that whole disconnect happens. So you have to always honor what you're flowing in. I see an inner compass as what you locate your future in, and then you guide yourself there. So sea life is like your mind being the ship, the cruise ship, your mind being the spaceship, whatever, and then the ocean becomes your flow of thought. And you have to be able to honor your morals by not going against your path. Because your path can lead you there by subtracting your illusions that think they're returning you to your essence, but it's showing you a path that your essence would never want to correlate with. That's why when you release dead weight and you bring in newer energies upon you, you can now embody this freedom that lets you know that the masks that you were playing in were never meant for you, but they were a facade that you were practicing that required you to think as if the approval that you were looking for was the case of you wanting to be in that knowing of somebody else's, let's say, approval of their life that they secretly hate being in. So you show them how to stop hating what they were never being in. And that's exactly why when you let go of what you're being, you don't have to expect yourself to be anybody because you're getting rid of the identity roles that you should never be following in the first place. That's exactly why you can't be like anybody in this world because your story is helping somebody else be the best version of themselves. So if you look at your story in your life and you can go back and memorize it, even when it's time for you to go back home, what kind of character were you being throughout your whole entire days? How hard were you working? How great were you in your craft? How much empathy were you pouring upon this simulation? And what were you giving to yourself when people were going against themselves while putting you into their picture for their frame of mind that they can't even frame a way of life in because they're not living their way of life, so they seeing you acting the example of how you were living for yours in today's time of being present with what you should never hold on to. So if you don't know who you are outside of your ego's name, if you don't know who you are outside of your SSN, if you don't know who you are outside of your position as far as your job, or who you are as a character, who your birth givers are, then you will never truly know yourself. But when you start working for the future good that has no label, you can now paint whatever affirmation you want because you're attracting a newer life that you can now sense yourself feeling freer in. And once you become free in that mind, you now get to resonate with what that character can look like because you're working towards it, and you know what that's existing in because you feel the energy that's moving upon you because you became healthier in the mind that you can align with every single day. Have a great and divine day, divine reflection.